It is good to see the house filled here on Christmas Eve. How many enjoy the weather right now? You enjoy that? It makes it feel more like Christmas, doesn't it? I had to think while these kids were up here, we have a beautiful, beautiful group of kids, don't we? Give our volunteers over at Kids Church and our kids just a huge hand. You can shut the door. Thank you. As I was studying about what to speak about here today, it came to my mind, how many reminisce about like when you were kids or when you were younger, what you used to do as traditions for Christmas. Christmas time normally gives us some type of tradition that we do as a family. I know for me, when I was a young man down in South Carolina, Christmas time ended up being, how many of it is your favorite time of year? Everybody? No, not everybody. Too full of a schedule. The schedule's too full. But for me, it became one of my favorite times of year was Christmas time. And my family did not believe the way I was raised. I wasn't raised with a Christmas tree in the house. And so we didn't have Christmas lights and things of that nature in our house. But my dad would, every Christmas, it never failed. We would get in the car and we would drive around and look at the worldly people's lights and enjoy their lights. Anybody else? And it was like, I remember then when I first moved here to Ohio, I was only 18 years old, so I still did that. The guy that used to own Jim Sunoco over in Sugar Creek used to put on this huge display of lights. How many remember that? How many went to see? Yeah. And so I kept that tradition up just on my own. In fact, my wife and I, we've driven down to Oglebay Park to look at lights. We love to look at lights. I like the blue ones, the red ones, and I like all of the colors. I do. I'm a sucker for it. I love the decoration part of Christmas, except I hate putting them up. And so if you come by my house, you're not going to see many because I was raised that we don't have them. And so I hold that tradition up pretty good, but I enjoy yours. But my favorite scenes of all are the ones where it's just clear lights. How many are with me on that? I mean, I love the colors and the blinking and everything. And I remember when they first started with this technology thing of putting a soundtrack behind it. TSO would be playing and the lights would blink with that. And it's all great. And I was wondering why we put lights everywhere. What intrigues us? What's our relationship to lights? What that draws us in and makes us do the lights. We hang lights on trees. We hang them on our gutters. We put them in our rooms. We put them on the shrubs. We put them everywhere, right? We see them, and I even see people. I saw last night, my family and I went to a concert, and I seen wreaths on cars, on the front of cars with lights. And what intrigues us, what's so inviting about lights? One of the titles that God himself proclaims and declares to be in Scripture is life light. In other words, he describes himself as the light of the world. And so this was actually, he did this before the birth of Jesus, which is what we're celebrating tonight. Today is the Christmas, is the birth of Jesus. But he actually did that in his words and his prophecy to us, that he would be, his name would be what? Emmanuel, which means God with us, right? The light bringer. He's going to change the world by bringing light into the darkness. And I know sometimes in the world that we live in society that we are, the culture that we're a part of, it seems sometimes that darkness is overtaking us, right? But I'm here to proclaim on this Christmas Eve, I don't believe that. The light will always win and darkness will not win. We know how it reads at the end, and darkness will not win. But he was said to be, he's going to be Emmanuel, God with us, and he's going to light up the darkness. He's going to light up our lives in order for us to live out our true purpose. So in the next few moments, I just want to describe to you what this light is. If you look at John chapter 1, verses 1 through 2, do we have that up there? This is reading out of the Message translation. It reads like this. The Word was first, the Word present to God. God present to the Word. God, and the Word was God in readiness for God. Now that's all kinds of mixed in. How you're going to have to read that maybe in a couple different translations. But the Word was God, and it was in readiness for God from day one. Then verses 3 through 5 says it this way. Everything was created through him. Nothing, not one thing came into being without him. What came into existence was life, and the life was light to live by. The life light blazed out of the darkness, and the darkness could not put it out. In other words, God had this all prepared. He knew that us as a society, the earthly human being that would be living on earth would resort and be somewhat defaulted to a darkness in our lives. In verse 9, he goes on to say that the life light, which is Jesus, he was sending him for us, was the real thing. And every person entering life, he brings into light. And so it's our choice whether we walk in light or whether we walk in darkness. He is, Jesus. The reason for us celebrating this day is the life light. I have an interesting relationship with light. I don't know about you guys, but some of you here, I know we all have different opinions on how lighting should be. I mean, I know that the light has left someone else. I'm just going to throw it up, and whoever lost it can grab it. There you go. We have different opinions of how lighting should be. It was interesting. Last night, we went to this concert, and it was Trans-Siberian Orchestra, and they have these amazing lights there. And they're shining, and the lasers are doing all kinds of things. And Mason was sitting beside me, and he said, "Dad, that's too bright. I can't see." Here, one had cut across his face, and like blinded him, momentarily blinded him. He didn't like that. So he had a different take on light last night. I know some people like it bright, some people like it dim. I know that there's a controversy on how we light this sanctuary, isn't there? Some people would like it a little bit brighter. Other people like it a little bit dim. There's going to be a variance of that. But the other night, I have this little sound machine that if you tap it, the light comes on. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you, this light is very dim. It's even hard to see when it's on, okay? And I reached over. If you touch it like continuously, the sound machine comes on. If you tap it, the light comes on. If you tap it again, the light comes off. If you touch it continuously, the sound machine goes off. So it's one of those high-tech. I didn't like it at first, but it is what it is. Someone put it there for me. And thanks for the sound machine back. I must have reached over and just kind of tapped it, and the light came on. I didn't think anything about it. So the next morning I get up, I go about my business. The next night, this was just this week, we get ready for bed, and she goes, "Honey, make sure you turn that light off. I had a miserable night last night." I'm sleeping right beside the stupid thing. I don't even know it's on. But she's on the other side of the other side of the bed. I was going to say the room, but I won't go into detail. And it bothered her to the point she said she had a miserable night of sleep because that little light was on. And what do we know about light? True light is kind of revealing, is it not? And so when I stand here and I say that this Christmas season, the light of the world is a gift to you, you may be saying, no. I don't really care to have that part of my life? What's he going to reveal? I don't really want people to know. It could be sort of a standoffish thing to think that my life is going to be revealed. But I'm here to tell you that Jesus didn't come to reveal you in a way that would humiliate you, make you feel less than, embarrass you. That's not the light that God gave us as Jesus. It's just not. There's all kinds of lights going on. My sister in Florida built a new house, and so of course she wanted to show off when I get there. And she said, "Watch this." She pulls out her phone and she has this crazy app. She kills all the lights in the house. Right? Everything was kind of dark. It was daylight, so it had natural light. But she starts hitting these buttons, and all of a sudden, like, it was red over here, and then it was blue over there, and then it got pink. And I'm like, "What are you doing?" She goes, "I have LED system in my house," and she could just change the mood however she wanted to by the push of a button. Isn't that something? Yeah, you should see it. It's amazing. Her whole house was set up that way. And I know for me, I like that my favorite dinner spot that I like to go, I told Becky, it's probably because the lights are always dim and it's romantic there. There's just this ambiance feeling there. And so lighting can vary. But when I tell you that God sent the light of the world for you and for me, our first impression sometimes can be, that's not for me. And I'm here to tell you, it's not to hurt us. It's not to reveal our blemishes and inconsistencies. The life light that's described by John in those verses that I showed you, it was to bring a light and shine a light that would bring and draw in all of humanity. It's to draw. It's to bring in. It's to receive. And when you and I receive that light, we then, with Jesus in us, do the same to the cold, dark world around us. And if we're not drawing people in, I'm wondering if we're carrying the right light. It should be a warm, welcoming experience. Jesus, he's here. He came to light the way. I was 10 years old. My cousin was 11. I grew up in South Carolina, so the way that we rode through town was with four-wheel drive Toyotas and a dog box on the back, 33-inch Super Swampers. This is when we got older, not when I was 10. But you get what I'm saying. A little redneckish. Everything down there, it was coon hunting and about coon and deer and ducks. 10 years old. My cousin and I found this tree down in the swamp that 3 grown men could not get around today. And it was hollow in the center. And when we were down there in the woods that day, we saw a bunch of coon tracks going in and out of that little hollow in that tree. And so we thought it would be wise. We needed to know exactly how many coons are there, and we had already put the money in the bank. We were going to catch every one of them, skin them out, and we were going to make some big money. So we got this little foot trap, took a little rope, tied it to the foot trap and around the next little tree that was over to the side, and we baited this thing, covered it up. And the next night, they were over at our house again. And we were like, we can't wait. We got to go see what's in this coon trap. So immediately after supper, we took off for the woods. We got down there and it was getting dark and we were looking around for our trap. Of course, we don't have a light. We didn't think that far. We were just kids. We're down there looking for this trap, and all we found was a piece of rope tied to a tree. Here, whatever got caught in the trap had chewed the rope off, and we were without a coon and we were without a trap. But now we're in a predicament. It's dark. And I remember so well, we were like, well, it's that way. And so we walked that way. That didn't work. And so we came back, and it's not, don't know what that was. Is my time up? We walked around and around and around, and we absolutely could not find our way home. We got scared like kids do. And finally, I'm not sure, I would love to say I was the one. I would love to take the credit for it. But we came to a conclusion. There's a light way over there. And if we walk towards that light, at least it's a better place than here. And so we started going through the thickest of thick, briars cutting us, sticks, but that light is where we wanted to end up. And when we got there, it was the back porch light of my mom and dad's house. And we were safe. Again, didn't dare tell mom and dad what happened, but we were muddy from head to toe. Our clothes were torn, and we had thorns and cuts and bruises everywhere. We went straight to the light. We didn't care what was in the way. And that light represented our safety. It represented what we longed for. And I don't know where you're at in life. Hopefully, you're smarter than to set a coon trap with a rope. But I don't know where you're at. I know that this time of year, we have gotten numerous phone calls of people who are dealing with depression, loneliness, addictions. The list goes on and on of the darkness that tries to come in. But light is going to win each and every time. Scripture would tell us that God had it in his mind that the very first declaration of statement that he declared was what? Let there be. It's important to him in his kingdom. And this Christmas, don't let the darkness consume you. Don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it get you. Receive that light from Jesus. Let him guide you to safety. Prophecy in Isaiah says it like this in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 2. He said it 700 years before Jesus was born. He was declaring what that light would look like. Worship team, if you'll come back up and take your place. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelled in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light has shined. Jesus wants to be that light, and it's not one to reveal your faults. The true light of Jesus will bring you in. It'll be a welcoming experience. That life light, according to John in the Message translation, is blazing. His light that does two things, and I'll let you alone with these thoughts, but the two things that the light does is it reveals the lies and it reveals the truth in your life. And it's because of his birth, because of how God ordained it, how he came to earth. He was tempted like we are. He was lonely like we can get. He felt pain and physical anguish like we can feel. And he understands loss the same as we do. And that's why God sent the life light to earth so that we can experience light in our life. Darkness does not win. I want you to imagine, if you would, how bright and brilliant. Somebody else lost their light. We need a light catcher up here. Imagine with me how bright and how brilliant the sky must have been that night when the angels were there, or when the shepherds were there tending their flocks. And all of a sudden the angels appeared. It says a host of them. Imagine with me how bright and how brilliant the sky was. I believe it lit up like a noonday sun. It says they were greatly afraid when the angels showed up. Imagine how bright the star was. I believe light is a big deal to God, and how bright and compelling that the star actually was, that the wise men who were making a living by studying the stars, they found one that was so compelling and so unique that they followed it to wherever it would lead. They didn't care, and there's where they found Jesus. Imagine that light. Jesus is that light, and he seeks to reveal his goodness, his wonder, and his beauty in our lives. The light of Jesus reminds you of who you are, and it most definitely reminds you of who he is. Darkness will not win. Amen?